Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Show. I'm your host, Nick Pallavita, and we're going to be talking about hot topics around the world. And with that, we have to reach around the world and get some people that can bring us the hot topics, which is not me. Instead, we're going to bring in from Los Angeles, Rick Rosner, a member of the Mega Society, Mark Lee, who has 100 years experience in this industry. We have Sasha Starr beaming in from Canada, and Shaquille, who's backstage from Australia. We're going to drop Mark Lee, so we have the Hollywood Squares format, which is what the thing I like. And embarrassing today in the economics show that Dr. Raina comes in from Bangladesh, and the first thing he notices is all the homeless people in your state, Rick Rosner. Homeless people everywhere.
We have a ton of them. We have a ton. California or LA is second in the country to New York City, which has 88,000. LA has 73,000. But our problem is self-limiting because we've got the Olympics in less than 4 years, and there's no way that we're going to let the world see all our homeless. So we're going to, I don't know what we're going to do, but we have a deadline to ship them out of town before the Olympics comes to town.
Well, isn't that got to be embarrassing that somebody from Bangladesh, which is not basically a wealthy country from my understanding, has all these homeless people?
No, I looked up Bangladesh. If you want to hire somebody in Bangladesh, you can hire somebody there for 53 cents an hour. But yeah, because our news media is crap at teaching Americans about the rest of the world. The only time we see Bangladesh is if something horrible happens, like flooding.
So it's very interesting because Sharif was talking about being at Stanford. So I've spent a fair bit of time there because I've got family that actually live in Palo Alto and some of them that are attached to that university. So Yeah, he is right. It is very confronting when you get to California. The very first time I went to California, somebody asked me for money or whatever, and my uncle, who's from Canada, gave him $5 or something. And it just didn't sit right with me because I'm like, hang on a minute. You guys are about the same wealth level. You have about the same annual income and stuff as us. And you guys are always telling the rest of us that you're the greatest country in the world that's ever existed. You have more freedom and all this sort of delusional stuff that you say. And then you get me, a tourist, and you're asking me to give money to your citizens? I don't think so. But I always find that fascinating. I do want to come back to something on the economics show and actually the first show that we did. So the cost of labor, as you just pointed out, Rick, is so much cheaper in these developing countries. So if you're running any kind of business, but especially a business that, for example, we talked about AI before, if you were in the entertainment industry, you needed to get post-production work done, all that kind of stuff, why would you employ an American or a Canadian or an Australian or a Brit? Like, why would you when you can get it done for, again, like I keep using the example, a country that has an annual average wage of $2,500 a year, that means you can employ 100 of them for the same price as it would cost you to employ 3 people domestically.
Shaquille, isn't that the reason?
Let's talk about AI, because AI is this big, shiny, it's the future. It runs on super low waged workers in like Bangladesh and Africa, because it takes tens of thousands of low wage workers to code the information so it can be digested by AI. So this big modern thing is really running on zillions of poor people.
But
Yeah,
Shaquille,
the world's economy
Shaquille,
runs on zillions of poor people. That's how the whole world operates.
That's how the economy runs and everything. But just really quickly, Shaquille and Rick, I don't know how much longer this phone's going to last and everything. It seems to me that there's a very popular app that's been out there all during the pandemic that was very popular, and a number of people were using it because they could get cheap labor. I think it's called Fiverr, and all along those lines. And a lot of people were using that because they knew they could get cheap labor, whether that was for graphic designs, public relations, or a number of other things. And I know that Nick's in the background listening to everything. And yes, California and New York are much worse in terms of the homeless, but we're not exactly doing great in North Carolina. If you come to North Carolina, you'll run into homeless people here as well. You run into panhandlers. Matter of fact, I saw a gentleman that came to my workplace, and I found out that he's literally sleeping on the church or sometimes even on the road in the streets and everything, because he's been homeless for a number of years and everything. So it is an issue even here in North Carolina, even though it's probably not nearly as bad as it is in California and New York, but it is one that you can run into those folks here as well.
By the way, did you guys hear about the homeless issue in the debate? Did you hear about the candidates discuss the homeless issue?
It's a state issue.
You know why? You know why you didn't hear it? It's because
no solutions, because nobody's got a solution.
Even the federal government can't have a solution anyway. It's a state issue. It's a state issue. But to be fair to California, they are disproportionately going to have homeless people attracted to live there because of the beautiful weather that they've got. Interestingly, when I'm in Vancouver, I was horrified actually. We came out of this nightclub and I just saw these homeless. I was like, this can't be real. Like, how is there this many people? And it was like 2 degrees Celsius. So it was like really cold. And yeah, the locals were like, oh yeah, it's because Vancouver's so warm year round. I'm like, okay. So in California, I can understand. The west coast of Canada gets the same.
There's another thing that brings the homeless. If you've got an opioid addiction problem in Ohio, we have a ton of treatment centers where you can get sent from Ohio to LA and spend 6 weeks at a nice rehab joint, but they don't necessarily send you back when they kick it when you're done with rehab. You may end up
because California, after if I've from what I remember about the franchise tax board in California, once you've been there for more than 6 weeks, you're then deemed a resident, so then you have to pay tax to California on your worldwide income. Is that about right?
Well, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but they'll pay for your transportation to California.
Who will?
Rehab.
California will pay for it.
But no, that your insurance or some crap will pay for it, but that somehow they don't pay for transportation back. That sounds ridiculous to me, but lots of ridiculous shit is true. I don't know.
Wouldn't you be better off doing like the opposite of that? Like send them up to, Saskatchewan or, like somewhere that's freezing cold and you can't come back unless you clean.
Yeah, but the people who run like, a Malibu rehab place that advertises on TV, they want the business. And
yes, but the health insurance company. Anyway, I get your point.
I think what we should do is round up all the billionaires and send them to Alaska and strip them of all their assets. I think that would be good for America, because frankly, we don't need that billionaire class anyway.
I keep asking.
That would probably be good for America. In other words, just strip them of all their assets and let them, because they treat homeless like, just let them just go somewhere else. Well, I tell you what would be really good, and this is one reason there were revolutions in France, there were revolutions in England, is why don't we just strip the billionaires of all their assets, okay? Use all their assets to build homes, which would be useful, and then send them all to Alaska. That's a good suggestion.
Because that type of economic model has worked so well in the countries.
It was called the French Revolution, my friend.
Let me tell you something. If the United States actually ever enacted the lunatic left-wing progressive economic plans that you and others on this show seem to love so much, I'd love it, except for the fact that I have so much love and respect for your country. I'd think it's fantastic. Sasha would think it's fantastic, because Sasha and I, being non-US citizens, would look at your massive increase in government spending, which is going to occur, the massive increase in asset prices that's going to occur, and we don't have to pay your taxes. So bring it on. If you guys are going to destroy yourselves, we'll take our money first. But I really love and respect your country, so please don't.
No. Well, there's just no reason to have that class. But go on.
I'd like to mention that it's almost every day here on Pod TV. There are two discussions. One is national debt, $35 trillion, and another one is homeless people. And I'm pretty sure that it brings you eyeballs, because if not, then I don't understand why you're discussing that. In Canada, we have national debt, and we have homeless people, including Toronto, almost any other city. But we're not talking about it. We're not discussing it. There is nothing to discuss. As well as
that's because you don't have the extreme amount.
Because there are billionaires in Canada and nobody discussing them, and there are homeless people in Canada and nobody discussing them, because that's their life. That's how the world works. That's it. So you want to work? You want to change the way the world works? It's impossible. So just leave it alone, please.
So I have a plan similar to Nick's, but it requires some divine intervention. That Jesus shows up, and instead of rapture being for the very best Christians, it's for the jerks. Jesus shows up and he takes the 10,000 biggest jerks on earth and raptures them to Europa, which is the ice moon of Jupiter, where they can live in caves in the ice comfortably, but our brains aren't getting polluted with like Alex Jones or Laura Ingraham. And then it takes another 10,000 and puts them in caves on the moon. And those people, they're the second biggest jerks, but they have a chance. If they clean up their act, they can come back to Earth. If they keep being a-holes, they have to go to Jupiter.
Hang on a second. Did you just put Alex Jones and Laura Ingraham in the same category?
Well, I mean, it's the top 10,000. And America gets 1/4, the top 2,500 Americans. The other 7,500 is the rest of the world. And
so how do we choose these 10,000? Because I think the 10,000 I'd pick would be totally different to the 10,000 you'd pick.
It's up to Jesus. So
no, but you use two examples there, Alex Jones and Laura Ingraham. I mean, maybe we could go with some of the ladies on The View. Maybe we could get some of the other left wing lunatics that you've got on your media shows.
All right, I think we agree about Alex Jones. Laura Ingraham, we can debate about. Alex Jones is for sure on everybody's list of the biggest a-holes on the planet.
Well, no, I'm not going to agree with that. I'm not. Not because I'm going to defend him, because I think, no, hang on, hold up. Not because I'm going to defend him. I'm not, right? I think he's batshit crazy. And I think that what he said about the school shooting was deplorable, right? Yeah, you got families that are grieving. That's just, it's not on. But he's basically being a shock jock, right? He's just out there, gets him views, and then people tune in, and then he's like, hey, don't take vaccines, don't do this, don't do that. But boy, do I have a supplement to sell you, right? Which you don't know the ingredients of either. So he's got his little shtick. But Howard Stern was kind of like that too, right? So shock jock, get out there.
Howard Stern didn't make people crazy. Howard Stern had like porn stars on, and we got to look at boobs, which we would do anyway.
You already agreed that what he said about Sandy Hook was horrible, and the fact that he went after the parents to get people to then got sued. So Howard Stern doesn't have that. So I think all right, well, that's not the hill.
I think Alex Jones pushed it a bit far.
Shaq, the Laura Ingraham one should be the hill you die on, and not the Alex Jones one.
No, I didn't say. I said I wasn't going to defend Alex Jones. I'm just saying he was a shock jock. He made some money. He got sued. And his company hasn't he lost his company now? And he's been shut down or whatever. But and honestly, I've never actually watched his shows. I've never watched a single show. I've watched all excerpts of it. He had something he was talking about chemicals in the water turning the frogs gay or something. I've had little bits like that I've heard of. And then Kanye West, didn't he go there like in some mask or some thing that he was wearing? Like I know he seems to be crazy. Right? I'm not going to watch him, but he obviously has a fan base.
Since this show is on the media, there are among the new shows this fall on TV is High Potential and something called Brilliant Minds. And these shows are both, we have a bunch of smart people on this panel, high IQ people. And over the past decade, and even before that, there have been tons of shows on CBS and all the network, the broadcast shows, networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, about geniuses figuring shit out, solving crimes for the most part. And my wife and I watched High Potential, which is about a janitor lady who's vacuuming police headquarters, and she sees some evidence, and like Good Will Hunting, who's another genius janitor, she sees the evidence, and then they've got a big murder board on the wall, and she starts writing on the board because she's a genius and because she's weird, she can't get a job better than janitor. And they're like, who did this? Who solved our case? And they hire her, and janitor lady is now working for the cops. And the show was very frustrating because it was obviously written by people who aren't geniuses, and it required the cops to be complete freaking idiots and with a mystery that made no sense, just in order to provide the genius lady opportunities to be all geniusy.
But that's why when you watch the popular things like Dumb and Dumber and all that sort of stuff, right? It's easier to write for dumb people. What they should do, instead of having High Potential and what was the other show?
Brilliant Minds, which is based on a real guy, Oliver Sacks.
Yeah, maybe what they should do instead is have like Hypertension and Decaying Brains or something. Maybe that would sell more, I think.
Well, I got two shows for you. I got two shows that I need you to watch.
Sasha, a couple things about why we discussed this issue. Let's take a look at homelessness in Canada, 30,000, which
there is no way that there's only 30,000 people in Canada that are homeless. There's no way. Are you serious? I don't know if it's that
large either. I haven't seen that many. But the thing is, USA is over 500,000. So that's part of the
But
reason.
those rates aren't that dissimilar. So
The other
Nick,
reason we
Nick, your rates are wrong. It goes between 150 to 300,000.
Slow down, sharks. Okay.
No,
The
you
other thing is the
They've
national
got
debt.
a population of 30
35
million,
trillion in the
35 million
US,
people. You think there's only
2.1
30,000
trillion
homeless? What are you talking
Canada.
about?
Nick, what you put up
And the
as
USA's only got a
I'm just
population of
pulling stuff off the
500,000?
internet.
That might be California, maybe.
You can debate it, but how many times have you gone to
There's,
Vancouver?
there's no debate. California's got about 500,000 people on their own.
There we go.
Nick,
But those
USA
are not your rates.
what
I
you
promise
put
you,
up
those are
with-
not your rates.
Yeah, Shaq is spot on. What you put up is factually wrong. I mean, if you go to the
No, it's from the internet. The
Canada-
internet never
Yeah,
lies.
Well, yeah.
God, you tell
See,
me.
Canada
well, you
ranges
guys,
from
well, you guys
150
Google stuff. I mean, you know what? You've proven my point now, Nick. See, well, you guys Google stuff. I'm on my phone. I don't have access to Google right now. So every time you guys try and Google to fact check me and you get it wrong, there's evidence of it right there.
Hey,
I said you're right.
No, I know you did, Jacoby. Thank you,
okay.
but I'm talking about in general.
But yeah,
You know.
Nick, it points out that it says between 150,000 and 300,000, and the figure has been rising.
150 to 300 for who?
Canada.
No. That is the experienced homelessness one time a year, but that's not the entrenched.
So I have
homelessness.
a question.
They're saying
I have a
the
question
entrenched
here.
homelessness
Okay.
all year long.
Okay,
is
hang on. I've got a question for you.
There's a difference because you're homeless for a day, then you're homeless all year long. So
I've got a question for you on this, right?
Anyway,
So-
this is your entrenched homelessness.
So what happens, right? So let's say in the United States, where you can't even keep track of how many, immigrants are gotaways and things like that. It could be 10 million, it could be a million, it could be anything, right? You've got no idea where they are. Nick's going to leave now, so it's a hard question, right? So here's the question.
I'm here. I'm just listening to you backstage.
How do they actually go around and count the homeless people? Like, you go up to people, it's like, hey, are you home? Like, how do they
my wife
score?
has done it. My wife has done it. They in LA they do an annual inventory, and they get a bunch of volunteers, and they go out. They fan out across LA to known places where homeless people are, and they count them. And does this get every single homeless?
They count them just like you count inventory
Again.
in a store.
Nick.
It's like you're counting cigarettes in a store. We count homeless people here. They're treated
Yes.
as inventory.
Nick,
They're not
just-
people.
So you do a stock take. You do a stock take.
Yeah.
Here's
Okay, let's
from
get to
the
Toby.
Advocacy Center for Tenants Ontario. This is the fact sheet on homeless in Canada and Ontario. This is from 2017. All right. In addition to the visibly homeless, 450,000 to 900,000 Canadians represent the hidden homelessness. So when you put up a 30,000 figure, that's like, that's like, hey, you see this? I got these computers right here. They're worth 5.5 million. I'm just making up numbers right now, just like
You are so full of it, Toby.
Wait, I want to go back.
Given the newspaper I earn $700,000 a day, I can afford to buy that fridge for it's only a week's pay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to my topic. Toby, you said 2 shows you should watch.
Oh yeah, 2 shows, and we're talking about intelligence shows. These 2 I think are really cool because they take one, Vox Machina. These guys who actually ran a YouTube show, they're big into Dungeons and Dragons. They did a whole spoof on it. They really wrote up a whole bunch of stuff about it. Really intelligent about Dungeons and Dragons. If you're into that side of the world, watching Vox Machina is really good because they've actually made that show spoofs off of not only the archetypes, but the actual storylines that you create in Dungeons and Dragons. They play it the way Dungeons and Dragons is. It's a great show. It's animated. A live action one that just came out, Chaos. Chaos was Jeff Goldblum's show that he was playing a villain. It's on Netflix. Very well done because what they did with that is take all of Greek mythology and throw that in today's world. And it's wild thinking about how Greek mythology, comes in line with the beliefs that are here today from having, those true believers that believe anything that God says is law and so on and so forth, that you must kill people to stay in line with
Well,
God.
if
I mean,
God says it, if
Well,
God
yeah, yeah,
says it, then it
yeah,
would
yeah.
be.
But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that it's God's law is God's law. It is never ending, and you have those true believers that way. Then you have the others. It's just wild. Trust me, Shaq. I think you'd be entertained by the show as well.
My wife
Text me the
started
shows later because I won't
watching it.
remember
I
that.
made it all the way through. My wife quit on it, but yeah, watching Jeff Goldblum as the Greek god Zeus and being in tracksuits, being a total prick, is pretty entertaining.
Well, it's an improvement from the first film I ever saw him in. Do you remember The Fly?
Yeah, it was a great movie. Plus
I
Gina
loved it.
Davis. Yeah.
In fact, if I go out to my garages, I'm sure I've actually got the old VHS cassette, because I remember buying up all these cassettes. You could get them for like, 50 off them for like $2 and stuff like that. And I've got like literally thousands of them there. I can't find a VCR. I'm actually looking for one, and I can't find one anymore. So
I've got a theory about genius shows on TV. CBS is famous for having the oldest viewers of the broadcast networks, and the broadcast networks are really for older people anyway, for people who can't afford to get cable or can't figure out how to do streaming. So for a while, half the shows on CBS were geniuses figuring out crime. And the reason this is, and my theory is, that old people are made nervous by the world because it's changing really fast and they don't understand it very well. But you turn on CBS and there's a mystery. It takes an hour to be solved. A genius solves it, but they make it very clear everything that's happening. And you, the confused old person, is like, well, I understood that. And it took a genius to figure it out. So I must be okay. So they make old people feel
making dumbasses feel intelligent.
I think Dumb and Dumber does better than genius shows, but that's my opinion. See, Dumb and Dumber is really good because it attracts the masses. 99% of the population. Genius is only like the top 1%. That's such a small number. No one gives a rat's rear about them. But Dumb and Dumber is huge. Look at our politicians. They're huge, okay? They attract the masses. So the dumber you are, the better you're off.
Yeah, but
so two great shows is one VP with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I've watched several seasons of it, and I think that she does a great job. I was actually very interested to see how they were going to handle not saying which side of politics they're actually on for a whole show, but they actually did that episode after episode really, really well. And the second show, which I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but Yes Minister, which is an older show, comedy from the United Kingdom, which I absolutely love that show, and it's just come up on my cable subscription today as well, so I'll be able to rewatch it. But I think it's great because it does sort of lift the lid off, especially Yes Minister, because it's a comedy and there's a laugh track and all that in it. It just lifts the lid off, the sort of manipulation that goes on behind politics.
I think.
Well, can you help me out on things on Netflix?
I
can't get ABC, CBS, or NBC here in Spain. Anything on Netflix we can see?
Well, Nick, what you want to do is you want to go for a YouTube. This is how I access American media. So I use my VPN now, but when I was in America, it was the first time it came up for me. Is that you can actually get your cable subscription on YouTube, and then you just connect with a VPN and you've got it. And apparently that's perfectly legal. The only problem is that it keeps giving me US advertising. So at the moment, it's asking me to early enroll for the election and all that sort of stuff, and make sure I cast my ballot and all that sort of stuff. And last time when I was in the United States, not the last time, but when I was in the United States in 2020, it kept asking me I think it was 2020, it kept asking me to fill out the census, and it kept pestering me with it too. You need to fill out your US census, all American citizens. I'm like, I'm not even there, on the other side of the world.
So I think we're judging what's considered genius different than what is not. For example, there are a ton of shows that are out there right now. For example, the Marvel shows, how the Marvel movies even. There are so many little hidden Easter eggs and tidbits that you can find based on if you were to read and know about the comics and other histories behind each and every character. So if we're talking about hunting and searching, that could be considered genius as well. So
sorry. Hunting through comics for Easter eggs could be considered genius. Is that what you said?
Hunting through to find out the history and the understanding of, for example, the character that popped up, Black Panther. The history behind Black Panther is very, very intriguing and understanding around, not only why the character was created, how the character came about, what the history, the actual history they're talking about, what the developed nation of Wakanda was supposed to mean to the actual culture. So there's a lot of stuff. So that's the hunting and finding that I'm talking about. For example, the Dora Milaje, which is in the actual X-Men comics, they actually made a separate spinoff for the Dora Milaje. The Dora Milaje was considered the great defenders of Wakanda. Well, that is actually based on the history of women being the warriors in Africa. And they actually took the women's tribe. And so there's a lot of history back there that you can actually search and find out.
So what you're saying is Marvel productions are highly processed, because Spider-Man was created in 1962, 62 years ago. So if you're going to do a Spider-Man movie, it has to conform to this. But I mean, the comics were written for kids by schlocky guys in New York City. And yeah, they were smart guys, but they were also, they had to crank out a dozen new comics every month. But then the movies come along and they're like, we're going to spend $200 million on making this and another $100 million to market it. So it can't suck. We have to go through the script a million times. We have to make sure that it conforms to the comics for the obsessives who will notice if we change stuff. But we also have to get a million screenwriters in here and do a ton of drafts to make sure that regular people don't think it's shitty. Like they've never made a Fantastic Four movie that hasn't sucked. They keep trying, but
this is why there's such pushback against what I'm not going to argue with you what the term means, to Toby, about this woke stuff going into stuff. I mean, look at Star Wars. The recent, probably the last 5 or 10 years, but especially the last 5 years with Disney, they've just infuriated people. And the thing that I really don't get is that one of the reasons that these sorts of movies keep being made, with everyone dressed up in super action hero costumes and stuff, and a lot of animated stuff gets made, is because it's actually really easy to translate it for foreign audiences. And the foreign audiences don't care about this sort of stuff. I mean, people in China aren't going to care about a domestic issue between blacks and the rest of the community in the United States, right? The audience in India doesn't care about the transgender issues the United States is facing. So I don't know why they're putting that out there, because generally speaking, your domestic box office sales are about the same as your foreign box office sales for a lot of these stuff. Why would you want to alienate half of the box office sale?
So just to point out the history behind the comics, for example, this quote unquote woke stuff, that's since the inception of comics, movies, and everything else. The problem is what Rick just said about conforming to today's society. What we're not understanding is that, for example, X-Men was created talking about accepting people for whom they are. They could be gay, they could be whatever color, and so on and so forth. That is the inception of X-Men. It wasn't that this just happened yesterday. And then the same thing with, for example, when I brought up Black Panther. Black Panther was created in 1957, if I remember.
1966.
66. And so,
but it predates the Black Panthers.
Exactly.
So it was more woke than, and the deal with woke is, the one thing about woke is it gives you possible storylines. Now you may not give a crap about trans issues, but having a a superhero show up who has trans issues, that's a plot that you can grab at, and because you're all
Rick,
so
but
this
Rick, the
woke
thing is that
idea-
that's not
no,
the
no.
moment.
Hold on, just to point out, in Japanese animation or anime as is known, anime does the same thing American comics do for the US. Anime deals with a lot of Japanese political problems that are there. And same thing with Danhua. Danhua is Chinese animation. So those same things that go on in those same thing in the US that you're complaining about are the same things that go on in every form of media in their particular region.
And
It's
manga
not
has.
that hang on. Let me just respond. It's not that I'm complaining. Right? I'm not complaining. I don't care. In fact,
Okay.
I don't really know what you're talking about with comics because I'm not into them, and I don't generally watch movies that are about them because I never got into them as a kid, so I'm not going to get into it now. But what I do know is looking at the financials of a lot of these films, a lot of them have lost money. A lot of the Disney stuff has lost money recently, or it certainly hasn't made the sort of profits that they were expecting. And I think that they've gone a little bit too far. And to sort of come back to what you were saying, Rick, yeah, absolutely. There's a big difference, though, between saying to people, hey, like, we just got to accept each other. I think most people do. And what you've got is a group of people who are going around acting as though the majority of people are their enemies. And nobody likes that. And they don't want to go and see something where they're just going to be lectured to. And that's what it's turned into. It's gone away from being fun to being a lecture. And a good example of this is one show that I did used to watch a little bit, which is The Simpsons. If you look at the Simpsons, you know, I was born in 83. So if you have a look at The Simpsons from the 90s through to, I know, the early 2000s, it was fun. It was funny. It was it was something you could just laugh at. It was frivolous. You have a look at the more recent ones, and a lot of what used to be funny about it is gone. It's not the same Simpsons as it used to be because it's become too PC.
Just to push back on that, I think the difference is our mindset towards what's going on. So, for example, how Rick talked about the cartoons from yesteryear. Cartoons were created as a satire against what was going on in the world. They were not meant for children. If you go back and look at Bugs Bunny and all the things that they're talking about at that time, that was not made for children. That was made for actually adults to understand and actually have some satire or humor around what was going on. From Foghorn Leghorn to Yosemite Sam to Roadrunner, all that was adult stuff, but kids picked it up and enjoyed the laughter and the comedy behind it. And then
those were good cartoons.
But that's not happening now, is it? The Wizard of Oz.
Still happening
Wizard of Oz
now.
was a movie about economics, right? But every child loved Wizard of Oz, and they knew nothing about the fact that it was an economics movie. But adults at the time picked up on it.
But even now,
But that's not happening anymore.
People are still switching because they get upset. This is where we get into our political silos. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm saying this is where we get into our political silos, in our own silos, and say, it has to be quote unquote woke. And that's the problem with it. I'm being lectured to. Well, you were being lectured to from South Park to The Simpsons, but you just didn't understand the lecture at that time. So, for example, with
Toby, hang on. You're twisting what I'm saying. I didn't say I didn't understand the lecture at that time. All I said was it was much funnier. Today, it's not. And the thing is, look, I'm not saying it because I agree or don't agree. You know what? There was. Hang on. There was a movie that came out. I can't remember how old I was. I was reasonably young, and it was called Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And it was these gay guys. They get the equivalent of a Greyhound bus, basically, and they drive across the country, and they're in drag and all this sort of stuff. They're drag queens. It's a fun movie. Sold. It was magnificent. Now, you guys then ripped it off and created a movie called Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, something like that. And it was not
Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar.
It was not as funny, in my opinion, right? Although we have different sense of humor in Australia to you guys, but it wasn't as funny, and I don't think it took anywhere near the same sort of box office success as what Priscilla, Queen of the Desert did, which was an Australian movie, which actually sold really well in America. So my point, all I'm saying is that currently the lineup of shows from Disney, there has been a lot of movies that they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on that have just flopped straight out of the gate. And at the moment, some of the new Disney stuff, they're saying, hey, we need to pull back on this and be less woke. So this is not about politics. I'm taking a political position.
I think they're attributing the wrong thing to it. For example, there are the DC movies, which aren't quote unquote woke. They've all been garbage. It's the writing. It's the actual the
Since when-
scenes, everything else. It's not the hey, this is Disney, this is woke, so it sucks. For example, one of the biggest.
Come on, let's go away from comics. Star Wars. And you're going to tell me that they haven't destroyed Star Wars these last couple of
That
movies?
has nothing to do with
totally
quote, unquote,
destroyed.
being woke. That just has everything to do with the writing. For example, the best Star Wars show that came out in season 2 is actually about to come out, and I'm super excited for it, is Andor. Andor and Rogue One were the best Star Wars spinoffs because they actually moved Star Wars forward, in my opinion, than what they did anything else. They had an opportunity with number 7, 8, and 9, but what they did is they fell into the trap because Star Wars fans actually ruined Star Wars more so than anybody, and that has nothing to do with Star Wars.
Come on.
being woke.
George Lucas even said that he was. He didn't know how he felt about having sold the franchise.
Jack, what I mean, because the Star Wars fans wanted the same exact thing that they got before. They wanted Darth Vader. They wanted all these things. They didn't want to expand. Hence the reason why number 8, which was Ryan, the guy who did, he was because.
Anyway, whoever it is,
look, but he tried to venture out and push Star Wars forward, but everybody got so upset at him trying something new with Star Wars, they shut it down.
You know what you do? You speak to your audience, you find out what they want, and you give them what they want.
They didn't want it.
Don't give them something they don't want.
They wanted it.
No, yeah, they want it, and then they hate
it. George Lucas himself is not a great writer. The Force, as a propelling concept, is bullshit. What is it? It's just a thing. It's just that in 1977 was the first science fiction movie that looked good.
And it was a spaghetti western about politics and talking about being woke. It was the most woke thing you could watch at that time.
But it had charming actors. It had dogfights in space that looked real. Before that, it was freaking people in rubber suits running around. Science fiction was crap until then, and it slid by with weak writing because you had to love it. And then
Rick, I don't know what you're talking about. The animations and the costumes were fantastic. For example, Lost in Space, the original series, that was amazing costumes that they used to wear.
It was just.
You couldn't say that with a straight face.
Lost in Space. Lost in Space.
I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you, Jacoby, I came across that. I think I was about 13. And I was like, what the hell is this old black and white Lost in Space thing? And I put it on, and I just loved it, actually. And so I ended up watching the whole season multiple times.
People being pissy in space. It was just people. It was like Gilligan's Island. Let's have an argument for a half hour or an hour, and on cheap sets that we don't have to spend much money on, and freaking lazy, like freaking Star Trek was not written. I mean, written by a clever guy, but an LAPD cop.
Yep.
Gene Roddenberry was a cop who, like, while he's being a cop, he's thinking about the world of the future. But a cop's version of the world of the future is not like they hired good science fiction writers, but the overall framework was dumb and lazy. Okay, the doors go whoosh, and everybody's got a cell phone kind of thing. But
But look, I think though, when I say that it's gone too woke, what I'm saying is that. Look, there's always going to be politics in media, right, and in our movies, because media sort of reflects what we're experiencing and what society's going through and all of that. But I just think that it's gone a little bit too far for a mainstream audience to want. That's what we're seeing. And I think that we're seeing that largely as a result of lobbying.
Has always been woke as heck, and that's one reason it annoys me, because I don't need to spend an hour on some simple freaking moral lesson. I want a bunch of crap to happen. I don't want to.
Okay, but if you have a look at what's it called, MacGyver?
Yeah.
Who would like get stuck somewhere, he creates something. Okay, he made a lot of moral and political points in it, but it was a fun show. Right, and that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of the fun.
You got to do stuff.
I think a lot of the fun isn't there today, and how we know it's not there is because these things aren't selling like they used to, and even Netflix had to say to its staff, look, you've got to lay off over here because our audience has like, what's the biggest selling thing on Netflix? I believe, if someone correct me if I'm wrong, it was Squid Games. And although Squid Games is political, I've actually got friends of mine that are Korean, and I've said, like, can you explain some of the politics? And they've sort of tried to explain to me, and I just don't get it. Right,
but on Squid Game, a ton of stuff happened. They killed a bunch of people every episode.
But that's not what they're doing here, right? That's not what's happening at the moment.
No, they're doing the same thing. Just as you just pointed out, Squid Game was about.
Then why isn't the audience responding to it, Chitovi? If it's all fun and everyone loves it, then why aren't they making money?
That has nothing to do with the.
Well, then get better writers.
Writing.
Then get better writers.
When I pointed out Chaos earlier, Chaos is one of the top shows on Netflix. And honestly, it has a lot to do with politics and being woke and all this other stuff. Matter of fact, you could probably go bring it and take it to lay it on top of what's going on in Israel and Palestine. It's writing.
Okay, then get better writers. Get better writers. Law and Order has always been about politics, but Law and Order is one of the most successful long-running shows that's been around for 20-odd years. Right?
The Wire was even better. The Wire was about Baltimore.
Hang on a second. So Law and Order, then they had a few spin-offs, right? They had Criminal Intent. I didn't like that as much, but I did watch it. But SVU, now have a look at what happened. At the same time as there was massive lobbying to make sure that different people were in positions of power in TV shows, what did they do? They took Mariska Hargitay's character in SVU. They got rid of everybody else. The people that loved all these other characters, all of them are gone. And then she's in charge. And for that entire season, all we're seeing is her with this adopted toddler and this. That's like, what are you doing? Law and Order was always the introduction, brutal crime, someone screams, the police get called, opening credits come up, then there's an investigation. And what we saw of the characters' personal lives was very, very minimal. Okay. Occasionally you'd have one episode, right? And that was it. This was an entire season of her, I'm looking after the toddler, and then the police come to her house and she's feeding the toddler. Like, it just ruined it. And what happened? The audience hated it and stopped watching Law and Order SVU. Then they had to bring back Elliot Stabler's character and create a whole new show for him. It hasn't been successful. It's ridiculous. Just stop doing it because it's not working. The audience doesn't like it.
Yeah, but attributing that to being quote unquote woke is wrong.
That's what it was.
That's not what it is. That's bad writing. For example, one of my favorite shows of all time.
But it's not bad writing, Toby. That's what they did specifically. They specifically did that because of lobbying that goes on in the media industry.
I can explain. Specifically doing that, they're trying to, they're trying to bring in a different audience and connect with the audience in a different way. And that's just poor writing on how they did that. For example,
have done it
one of my favorite shows, Shaq, one of my favorite shows, I bought every DVD as soon as it came out. Sex and the City. Watched every show. Know every character by heart. Love Sex and the City. They should have done a movie years ago, but what they did when they brought in the movie, different writers, they didn't have it. It wasn't timed correctly. They didn't update what was going on to the times. They actually dropped it out. The Carrie and Big stuff wasn't there. It just didn't connect. So they struggled. Is that being woke? No, they just had poor writing at the time for that movie and not actually for the show. Even the later issues of the show weren't as good. Same thing with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was great. First 2-3 seasons, then it started tanking off because what they did was they left the actual material that they had and they started experimenting and they didn't stick with what they had created in creating this whole suspension of disbelief, this world they had. They went away from it. That's not being woke. That's just...
There's a documentary out on HBO that's pretty entertaining about the making of The Sopranos. And it turns out that The Sopranos is the guy who created it, David Chase, wanted to make a show about how much of an asshole his mom was.
I love it.
But somehow that turned into a mafia show, and basically he got a writer's room in which everybody was encouraged to tell real stories from their lives about their family members being assholes. So it was authentic.
I'm still here trying to stop from choking after Jacoby says his favorite show was Sex and the City. Sasha, have you
But
Do you watch the old reruns of Sex and the City? Is it your your kind of show?
Phenomenal
I
show.
would guess that one of the keys to, I haven't watched much Sex in the City, but I would guess that one of the keys to that is some authenticity, that they had a writer's room and they would pump the writers for real stories from their lives, weird, perverse sex crap, and they would try to plug that into the plot. And people love weird, like weirdly specific, odd things you couldn't predict. People love to be surprised.
And
Look, I can understand somebody wanting to watch Melrose Place because she'd have that gorgeous lingerie on from time to time, and if you're a guy, you'd watch the show and go, "This is shit," but I can watch those bits, with my girlfriend or wife or whatever. But the Sex and the City, I can't do it to Toby. I think you and I have got some wildly different tastes somehow. Nick, do you watch Sex and the City? Is it your kind of show?
Have you tried the show? Complaining about it and saying that, oh, well, it's the name. If you hadn't tried the show,
Jacoby,
I did.
when Chris Noth went from Law and Order to Sex and the City, I thought I'd better follow him over there and see what this show is like. And I did have a friend of mine who she loved it. So every time I'd go over, there'd be a Sex and the City thing on, and I was just like, "Are we serious right now?" Like it sucks. It sucks.
I saw one episode. It was pretty poor. To be honest with you, Shaquille, it was a horrible show.
And authenticity.
Shaquille, did you like Friends?
For the authenticity part of it, how do these women, like, it's a bit like Friends as well, actually. How do these people actually afford the lifestyles that they have in New York? I mean, yeah, Jacoby over there thinks that I'm rich. I mean, the characters in these shows, I mean, they must be totally loaded.
All right, so I have a show I'm going to recommend again that makes fun of woke. English Teacher on Fox takes place in a high school and they're the one character who nobody really wants to be. When people are woke, it's always to try to get away with something to game the system. The principal is reluctantly woke because he knows if he doesn't enforce wokeness, somebody's going to sue him or parents are going to go crazy. But everybody is kind of half an a-hole, pretty selfish. And it's just about people playing games around wokeness. It's got like 3 jokes a minute. It's really freaking funny.
2 questions. The first one is, what are you doing watching Fox?
Hey, Rick, did you like the... I had a quick question for Rick.
Do you get that in California? Do you guys get Fox?
I don't know. We watch it streams somewhere else.
Second, can you see just in your travels to see if it streams anywhere that you're aware of? Because I don't think I've got it. I don't think I can access it from here.
It shows someplace else, like the day after or something. So we don't watch it on Fox. I don't know where we watch it, like Hulu probably.
Fox actually has some good shows on there. Family Guy, that's where that started.
Hulu or Eon or something like that.
Whole bunch of
Sean Hannity.
Yeah, but
that's what I was going to ask whether. Hey, Rick, did you like the old shows that were, I guess, anti-woke? So did you like Archie Bunker and Family, All in the Family? And did you like Carter Country and Dukes of Hazzard back in the day?
I hated those shows because they're like our frickin' shows. It was just people arguing for half an hour. I didn't like that shit.
I loved all of those shows. Married with Children, the first one, Married with Children, that was fantastic. I loved that character.
Yeah, that was fine, and plus it had Kelly Bundy, who was ballistic, and Katie Seagal, also ballistic. So, like, I liked shows where there was a reminder within the show that I could go beat off. Not that I would beat off to the show, but it had attractive women who reminded me, oh yeah, that's an option available to me.
I think Seinfeld is still the best.
Well, what did you think of the? I'm gonna go way back. What did you think of the Waltons and? What did you think of the Waltons and Little House of the Prairie?
Nothing frickin' happened. It was. I don't like the 19th century or the Depression. It's just a bunch of people like sitting around being poor, being pioneers. I don't want that.
The Waltons were all right. I never watched the Little House on the Prairie because for some reason, I just associated with Anne of Green Gables or whatever. And I remember being forced to read that bloody book as a kid, and hated it. For some reason, I just associated that with The Little House on the Prairie and never watched the show.
Yeah, I mean, but like all.
Well, I got one for you. So coming up on Halloween, which is next month and everything. Did you like the Addams Family? And did you like what's the other one, the Munsters? Because they had some hot women on there.
So
you guys don't know this, but Addams
Addams-
Family with a rock version of it, sort of thing, is actually my ringtone on this phone. So I think that'll answer your question for you.
So the Addams Family much better than the Munsters. The Munsters was a total ripoff. Was not as clever. And yeah, I like the Addams Family. It was perverse and had it didn't apologize. It tried to sneak, weird, perverse stuff in there.
And Christina Ricci didn't grow up to have drug problems and be a psycho, did she? She actually was one of the child stars that made it all the way through.
Well, she's in a documentary now that was made by who made a former child star about. You're gonna have to look it up. I forget who made it, but no, she got beat up. Every child star got beat up by conditions that that nobody really cares about a child star's feelings, and they will work them like crazy till they fall apart. Selena Gomez, I think Selena Gomez made it. So look up that documentary, and it's about how if you're a child star, you're pretty much gonna have to go crazy because the conditions are guaranteed to make you go nuts.
Yeah, you know what? I hear that, but I think that a lot of them
and everything. Hey, Jacoby.
They wouldn't have given up the fame to have had a normal life. I mean, I meet a lot of these people. They're so attention-seeking. Not all of them are, but some of them are just so attention-seeking, and I hate not having the attention on them. Who's that guy from? I just can't think of his name top of my head. He's like a short guy, brown hair. He was a child star, and then I think he used to be on
Whoa and Blossom, Joey Lawrence.
It's Joey something. I don't know. Anyway, he came out with some bizarre song, What's Up With the Youth Today, I think it's called. It came up on my feed the other day. And he was trying to tell everyone that Michael Jackson thought that was a really good song and it was going to be a major hit. And then you go and watch it on Howard Stern's program and you're like, dude, what's wrong?
Corey Feldman.
That's him, Corey Feldman. He's 50 now or something, isn't he?
Yeah, has to
Corey
be.
Feldman.
They do get older.
Yeah, they're in their 50s easily. Hey, they get older. Hey, Jacoby, I know we're getting ready to wind down and everything, but you see the comments that D.L. Hughley made about Janet Jackson? Because apparently Janet Jackson was getting on Kamala's case, and D.L. Hughley said that Janet Jackson can't talk because she's got a European nose and everything. So did you see some of that back and forth going on social media?
No, I didn't watch it. I mean, I haven't. I like DL as a comedian, or I used to, and then he kind of got boring on me because he started getting repetitive on a lot of his jokes. He's still a good dude, but no, I hadn't kept up with it at all.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But
Janice Jackson made a snide remark about Kamala Harris.
Janice Jackson.
Well, what did she say?
Newsworthy.
What did she say?
So DL, you said that Janet Jackson has a white lady nose.
Right. That sounds like the kind of racism.
DL Hughley said Janet Jackson has a white lady nose, and Janet. But Janet Jackson said something to the effect of she did that. It's kind of like that whole notion about Kamala's Indian heritage and black heritage, from what I understand. I don't remember the exact quote, but she was getting on her.
So telling someone they have a white person's nose, I mean, that sounds like the kind of racism we always get from the left, doesn't it? We don't hear that from the left.
And speaking of the left, we're going to leave because we're at the hour, and we'll see you next week on The Media Show.
All right.